Shabi Sholoji, and everybody, and Maulana, who is in Durban, Zubair Bayat. We are all one. We are all one. Let us work together. We are facing a critical situation in the world. What is happening in Sri Lanka is not only for Sri Lanka. South African ulama, intellectuals, and the professionals, and we appeal to everyone to take serious action into this. Education, media, and political administrations, these are very, very important. Where we started, there was a say that Sri Lanka Muslims were not having proper Quran. There was Quran translation, but not with exegesis. Alhamdulillah, 8 years of our 8 years of our effort, this was done. Alhamdulillah, these are the areas where the clarification were given, and Islamic perspective on peace and harmony was targeted. And Alhamdulillah, every mosque was carrying this, and the masjids and harmony centers was created in the various places. We are trying that, and politicians joining, building peace and coexistence, and how 30 verses have been very clearly explained in this book in Sinhalese language, and coexistence. We are reaching to every temple and discussing with them and explaining our religion. This is media role, anti-Muslim narrative, hate campaigns against Muslim is very, very dangerous in this situation, where the others also, my colleagues also will take part in this. These are the areas, my humble request. Let us collectively be united, be one ummah. Let us be one family and work together. Take these areas of lessons and go forward. Wa akhir da'wa alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah, Mufti Rizvi, for that wonderful presentation. There are so many lessons to learn from there. Firstly, I must put on record the appreciation that the South African connection. Two of the present presenters are those who studied in South Africa, Maulana Fazil, who will be next. He completed his studies from Darul Uloom in Newcastle, and Maulana Ikram, who studied in Strand by Mufti Taha Karan. There are questions that I have, but I suppose I'll keep it for the end when the presentations are done. It is really some very burning questions with regard to it. One of the things that, as I said, maybe we'll just skip it. Maybe Maulana Fazil, you can do your presentation, and then maybe towards the end we will start, speaking and ask relevant and pertinent questions arising out of the presentation. Jazakumullah. Maulana Fazil, you've got the floor.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wahda, wassalatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da, amma ba'd. قال الله تعالى في كتابه والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا وإن الله لمع المحسنين. All praise and thank you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Peace and salawat upon beloved Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Indeed, it's an honor to share the current situations and lessons to be learned from the current crisis in Sri Lanka. What we see today, an economic crisis, a political instability, is indeed not something that happened overnight. It was over a period, a beautiful country. Allah has blessed this land with everything, a peaceful community. But what we see today, this was planned, or this was practiced, this was executed over a period. Ever since we as Sri Lankans came out of a civil war in the year 2009, We came out of a civil war hoping, praying that this country should be rebuilt, established as everyone wishes to their land that they belong to. Unfortunately, in the year 2011, in our opinion, it's definitely politically motivated. Anti-Muslim racial groups were formed and they were promoting their ideology within all levels of the community, from the youth to the politicians, to divide communities and to keep their political powers stable and strong. That's what we saw. Then in the year 2012, such campaigns started, divided the Muslim community or divide the Muslim community with other communities. Muslim community was demonized to a degree, saying Quran was questioned, as Mufti Rizvi Sahab explained. The Quran was translated into Sinhala language, and to the very reason that when the Quran was questioned, claimed that it is promoting disharmony, it is promoting against all other faith, and so many things. So the community was broken into pieces. Muslim community was demonized, isolated, and the majority Buddhist community, whom we school together, we transact with them day in, day out, they are our neighbors, but this fear was put into them that Muslims are going to uproot you all, destroy you all. And this very popular organization called BBS played a very key role in promoting and dividing the communities. Unfortunately, what we see today, all these started long before. Country Sri Lanka was since then looked by the world community in a different eye, a doubtful. And Buddhism is a very peaceful religion, promotes peace, love, and harmony. But suddenly, this Buddhism was also promoted in a very violent manner by these organization, where communal riots, businesses, houses were burned down of the Muslims because they claim that Muslim population is growing, their economy is becoming stronger. Unfortunately, the country was put in a different platform in the sight of the world. And what we look, how we understand the situation, where the lessons that we need to learn. We as scholars and ulama and Jam'iyatul Ulama, the professional community of Sri Lanka, the intellectuals, we were trying to stop these the anti-Muslim slogans, or bring peace into the situation, to neutralize the situation, where a very moderate approach was done. But in fact, maybe that was not the goal of the people behind the screen, whom had their own political agenda. The country was robbed throughout. The wealth was usurped from our country. The national resources were misused, abused, and there were projects that has no revenue, loans were taken from many countries across the world, but the whole nation was busy looking into the Muslim community as a, they are trying to do something to this country, or they are trying to overrule, or they are trying to take control of this country. And Muslims have an evil agenda. That was the slogan which was carried. But in reality, the country fell year after year because loans were taken, wealth was robbed by this land, and so much of damage economically, financially was done to the country, no one knew. Until the year 2019, 2020, people start realizing that this country has an economical problem or financial crisis. We will be heading very soon. And slowly but surely they started realizing that Muslims are not the problem. Muslims are not the problem. All these allegations which continued to occupy the minds of the majority community so that people in power could do what they want with the wealth of this land. And people realized, even people started carrying slogans in the year 2021 and the current year 2022. They said that you kept putting fear into us with the Tamil community. Then you put fear into us with the Muslim community. And you separated us from them. And the problem is not them. Problem is with you all. And when this crisis happened, the youth, the intellectual people of this country stood as one nation. Alhamdulillah. They denied and they rejected all these claims to be false. And Muslims and all other faiths and the majority community stood to bring a change in the entire political system. That was a positive, and we saw lately many changes from the president, the parliament, and mashallah, and as a community that we have become united. So the lessons that the falsehood cannot rule always. A day come, the falsehood will collapse. The truth will prevail, like Allah has mentioned in the Holy Quran. And at these difficult times, the ulama and the intellectuals and people of all communities should work unitedly to safeguard themselves and the community and the country at large. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us good understanding and peaceful situations that we live in. Jazakumullah.
Jazakallah Maulana Fazil for that wonderful message. And we hope that inshallah we will benefit from that. And we've got one more presentation of Maulana Ikram before we also ask some pertinent questions. This is live on the various social media platforms of the United Ulama Council of South Africa. And if there is any question that people would like to ask to our esteemed presenters, I've got a list of questions, but of course, if there is anything, people can put it out onto the social media platforms and feel free to post your feedback and question using the comments section. We will speak to and ask Maulana Ikram, and we had targeted that by 10 to 9 South African time, which I think would be 10 to 12, or even maybe later that in Sri Lankan time. So Maulana Ikram, you've got the floor and you can continue with your presentation. Jazakumullah for your time. at this particular late juncture in Sri Lanka. Jazakumullah.
جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وقدوتنا إمامنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. Let me thank for the organizers and then thank Mufti Rizvi and Mullah Fazil for presenting a beautiful 360-degree the current context of Sri Lanka. Let me just touch certain things, what I think it will be useful for all of us who are here in this forum. Especially as Sri Lanka, we are in South Asia and Southeast Asia, one of the oldest democratic country. In 1948, we received the independence from British. From 1948 to 1972, we had a Westminster system, whereas the Prime Minister and the head of state was the Queen of Britain. And then 1972 and 1977, the constitution was changed and there was an executive presidency was introduced with a new constitution. So right through from independence up till now, if you go through our political history, there's about 4 families only have ruled this entire country. Through democracy, they use all different type of influence. It is the dear Senanayaka family, and then the Bandaranaike family, and then you have the Rajapaksa family. And if you see, the 74 years was divided by these 3 families, and in between there have been individuals who came into power. And there was always 2 major political parties, United National Party and then Sri Lanka Freedom Party. These are the 2 major parties was playing different roles. But time to time from independence, even before independence, when British felt that this nation is asking for independence, from 1915, the communal riots started. So the history until 1915, the community, Muslims, the Sinhalese, the Hindus, and all other community, we coexisted beautifully. 1915 is the first riot. And then after independence, there have been time to time, there have been a lot of internal conflicts. There have been conflicts from youngsters in 1970s, where a leftist group called JVP came in, and there was a lot of, armed struggle there. Then after 1983, and then right onwards till 2009, there was a war between Tamils and then the Tamil Tigers and then the government of Sri Lanka. We as Muslims, for 1,000 years, we have a history of ethnic harmony. There's the only community which has not taken arm against the government or against any other community in Sri Lanka. There have been small riots, there are small issues, inter-conflict, but as a community, an organized form, no, until 2019. But according to our belief, this ISIS, the East attack, was designed, it was engineered by some, evil element in order for them to come into political power, to gain political power. And if you see, Sri Lanka is a beautiful island in a strategic location, like Mufti Rizvi said, that, we have beautiful naval base in north, and we have a naval base in south, we have naval base in west, and all over, there's a strategic location in the Indian Ocean. So in one side, in Indian Ocean political dynamics, the India is trying to, control, and then the Western countries headed by America is trying to control, and then the China here. So the geopolitical issues are one of the main reasons that we have unrest here. As Mullah Fazil said, right through, this politician never, when we got independent in 1948, in this whole region, we were only second for Japan when it comes to our economy. We were a very strong country economically, we had our own resources, but successive governments failed to have a proper plan. They were only worried about power and their own wealth and their family's wealth, where they were not taking care. So I think intellectuals in the country, or people who have concern about the country, the patriotic of the country, we were busy with our own thing. We left the country to, corrupt politicians, let them do what they want. Until lately, one of the greatest oppression which took place, so many oppressions, oppression. One of the greatest oppression is the cremation for the COVID janazas. Even at that time, ACJU, we had a lot of dialogue. We engaged. Even before this law was passed, we engaged with authority. So our policy has always been engaging dialogue with the authority, while engaging with dialogue with authorities and engage with the majority community. We call ISL is that, intellectuals and influential social leaders, engaging with influential social leaders from all other communities. And we worked it. When these COVID-19 janazas were, cremated all over the world, everybody was speaking about it. And then I think that's way, after that only the COVID, and then people start realizing about the economic into 2020 and right onwards, like Mullah Fazil, what he said. I think there are so many lessons to learn when we live as a minority. One thing very important, we as Muslim community, we may have a lot of differences. Alhamdulillah, Mufti Rizvi and our senior ulamas did a wonderful job bringing all the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jamaat, different fractions together. We as Jamiatul Ulama, we are all the fractions, all of it Ahlus Sunnah wal Jamaat, we are together. Recently, we released, after the Easter attack, we worked on a manhaj, a declaration, exposition by the Muslim, for the Muslim community of Sri Lanka. A manhaj was declared. Sri Lankan community in Sri Lanka, when it comes to religious affairs, when it comes to the political affairs, when it comes to social affairs, what is our stance was very clearly declared in all three languages, and it was distributed, and we are promoting that. It was very clearly said, what is our stand here? So the unity of the ulama is very important. We have majority Shafis, we have a little bit of, we have a little bit of Hanafis, but we have different, groups, different jama'ah working for the betterment of the Muslim community and being in a different angle, but we all sit together. Jamaat al-Islam and Da'wah Tabligh Jamaat, and then even the group of Salafis, we all sit together because we consider we have a manhaj as Ahlus Sunnah wal Jamaat. That unity, actually, when we were attacked from the outside community in a different way, it brought us together. We sit together, we work together. We have differences. It's not easy. Any house has domestic problem, but one of the very important factors is that we were strength. And then when this anti-government, riot started, Muslims, we not alone, ACJ not alone. There was People's Assembly was formed with the guidance of ACJU and with other leaders. We also joined with them. We were guiding the youngsters as much as possible. There's a lot of reformation to take place, but what is the lesson that we learn is that we need to be more engaged. We have to have more civic engagement, intellectual capacity. We need to contribute in a national cause more. We need to create more ulamas and intellectual who will protect the wealth of the country, because this baladatun tayyiba, this is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Allah's qadr that we will be born in wherever in a respective country we have been born. So I think I don't want to take much of time. And we have learned so much of things. And myself and Mullah Fazil were educated by South African scholars, Mullah Taha Quran rahimahullah, and then in Newcastle by Mullah Qasim Sima rahimahullah, and majority many ulamas. So what we want is that we share our experience, we share our lessons one another, and see that where we can build a better community, because we all come from same school of thought, same background. We have a Devbandi scholars together. We all come from Shah Waliullah Dehlavi's same sanad continues everywhere. So we come from the same seed. So if we can learn better practice and share and be united together, and I think we can have, we can actually face whatever challenge come in front of us. This is, an aqimuddin wala tatafarraqu fi. So that struggle will continue, that we need to establish the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we should not be divided when in coming to effort of establishing the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In economic crisis, we all know, the government take loan from IMF, International Monetary Fund, and it's all interest based. So it's very important at this opportunity we have to introduce the Islamic economics, to introduce Islamic method of trading. And then always the Arab country, the Organization of Islamic Countries, a friendly nation. And recently, the President of South Africa has sent a message to our country that he wants to build a very close relationship, a friendly relationship with Sri Lanka, and see that how he can help and assist So that message came yesterday from official capacity from the Embassy High Commission of South Africa, and we have received it. So I think as ulamas, when we share our knowledge and when we share our brotherhood, when we share our same feeling and emotional attachment and spiritual connection by two nations, two communities together, but we are united as Muslim Ummah and we are united as humanity and as a global village. I think these are the lessons. Tilkal ayyamu nudawiluha bayna nas. I think the history will be rotating. It will come when a time comes to you. I think we need to share information and learn from each other and improve and become a better people. And the time come to meet our Creator Almighty Allah. Allah will be pleased with all of us. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Jazakallah, we would like to thank all the presenters, and bear in mind that while we have a relatively comfortable time frame and a time situation in South Africa, the ulama who are out there in Sri Lanka is just past midnight for them, and we thank them for their effort and coming on this and doing this presentation. I think what I'm going to ask, and I don't know who amongst the presenters and the ulama would like to answer these questions, and if there are any other questions that people would like to ask, please feel free to ask those questions on the United Ulama Council live the stuff that is going on the Facebook and the Instagram page and the YouTube page of United Ulama Council of South Africa. When you saw Sri Lanka, there was an example of peaceful coexistence between all different groups. Now, two questions that come about: what were the trends did the ulama observe leading to Islamophobia? Was there any type of initial trends that started leading towards Islamophobia? That is one. And flowing from there, another question is, in hindsight, is there anything that the Muslim community could have perhaps done better in managing relations with other Sri Lankans in general over the years? So two basic questions coming from there. There was peaceful coexistence. What were the trends that started off the Islamophobia? And secondly was, could the Muslim community have taken some lessons from there and said we could have done this better in managing our relationship with the general population, although we do acknowledge that there were people who had ulterior motives in creating this enmity and hostility against Muslims, as was done in the presentation and as was shown in the presentation. So these two questions: what were the trends leading to Islamophobia, and could we have perhaps just managed things a little bit better? Although this is in hindsight, and people need to make decisions in foresight, not in hindsight.
Usab was going to answer.
Yeah, so far, welcome, yes.
Yeah, Munabam, Jazakallah Khair. I think our forefathers used to always say when there was a war between the Tamil Tigers and the government, they said when the war ends, that's going to be the starting animosity or Islamophobia against Muslim community. So we noticed that 2009, the war ended, and then the campaign started against it. So ending of the war, before when the war was there, Muslims were, helping the government, helping the majority. We were with them right through. So because what happened is this is a politically motivated divide and rule. So they had a problem to always tell people that there is an enemy they was showing always. Our entire political history was they create an enemy and they show to the public there is an enemy. And then once that enemy was done, they have to create a new enemy. So that was our reading always, when the war ended, there's going to be a new challenge and there's going to be the Muslim community. Our forefathers always used to say that. So anyway, that was a political trend, and we should have engaged more in a better way. Of course, always we have that. But in another way, when it started, ACJU and all the Muslim civil leaders, we had a better plan and we engaged. So we always have a regret that if we would have done in the 30 years when the war was taking place, there was no focus towards the Muslim community. If we would have done more work engaging with the majority Sinhalese and Buddhist leaders, and then when these political leaders or when these people come up with this, creating Muslims as enemy, those people would have defended us. This is the number two that we should have done early. But Alhamdulillah, we learned from, our own past history. Number three, that we saw that, media as Muslims, and again, as Deobandi scholars, when we come from, with the digital media was introduced, we were less engaged in media due to various reasons, due to, we want ihtiyat and due to many reasons. And we did not have a powerful media to tell our story. Even now we are struggling with that. So we need to have a media institution, unbiased, a media institution. We are still struggling with that because you have a government media institution, then you have private media institution where they have ulterior motives and they work with agenda. So this, if we can do that better, if we have a strong media, which the majority community, the population, 22 million population, if at least, half of the population is, connected to that media, through that, I think we could have been better off. This is where I think we could have done better. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah for that. I think the one point that is quite very interesting is that you made mention is that those people, for political reasons, they needed to create an enemy. So once one enemy was sort of defeated, then all of a sudden they was creating another enemy. And I really like your last point that we didn't have a strong enough digital presence to tell our story. And that seems to be something that we still have not been able to inculcate within us, to be able to see the need for that. So I really would like to thank you. I see amongst the comments that have come in, there is a very interesting comment on your esteemed Mufti Zubair Bayat, showing that ongoing and meaningful engagement with the government and other communities and other stakeholders, even in very trying times, is so essential and effective. And really, Jazakallah for that. I think in many ways that captures some of the challenges. Now, carrying on from them, what sort of programs that challenges extremist ideologies and sentiments are in place to mitigate the tendencies towards social polarization? Now, of course, we agree that there are role players who are trying to create polarization, to create disunity. What type of programs do we have? And flowing from there, the second question, how do you see the evolution and the continuation of communal relations in Sri Lanka, flowing from what has happened and from the Easter bombing, for example? How do you see the evolution and the continuation in future of those communal relations?
On a bomb, it's clear. Is it clear?
Yes, we can hear you. Mufti Rizvi, we can hear you.
We ACJU initiated among the 14, 15 committees. One of the committees is CCC, Cooperation and Coordination Council. Cooperation Coordination Council. They focus on two things. One is coexistence, and second is unity within diversity. This coexistence, we have created NNP, National Network Project. This is, we have nearly 2,500, 600 masjids in the country. And we say there are other faith leaders and temples, church, and the Buddhist temples and church and other faith people. We have to interact with them. We say every masjid try to appoint 6 members, and Jamiatul Ulama is having nearly 164 divisions, 8,000 scholars. They visit with our the Quran translations and all our books to the Sinhalese translation and whatever clarification they needed. We go and interact. Alhamdulillah, we see lot of changes when we go and discuss with them. This was lacking in the past. An entire country, Alhamdulillah, we have 24 districts, 24 district Jamiatul Ulamas and 64 divisions, and each division is with many mosques, and each mosque with lot of temples and churches and lot of masjids. Every masjid, alim and non-alim, the intellectuals, professionals get together and go to temple, and they follow 4 important areas. First, to introduce ourselves. Second, to understand each another, and tolerance. And fourth, support the areas where we agree. On humanitarian basis, no force in religion, no cursing other religions, and no going into any shirk or unwanted things. Alhamdulillah, we see lots of changes through this. Many. One of the leaders in one of the photos I showed, he in the 2019, the conference took place with Rabita. One of the leading monks, he came and spoke about Quran. And Alhamdulillah, we managed to share with him and make him very close. And our Maulay Murshid and Maulay Fazil, they went to him and make him understand lack of knowledge, ignorance, and our part. Like we in this the posters in the mosque, it carries these versions. The Misaq Medina, how Rasulullah created when Rasulullah in Medina 10 years, how non-Muslims were tolerated, how they were given opportunities, how they were Rasulullah was treating them. These kind of things. Aslim Taslam, Rasulullah able to enter a Jewish house and say Aslim Taslam, where we are unable to do that. First, we have to introduce ourselves, we have to understand them, and we have to tolerate, and we have to support in the areas as possible. And we can't curse them. Rasulullah cursed 3 people, but Taif and other, generally, Rasulullah act was not there. And my humble appeal that we must read Surah Al-Nahl, the last 3 verses from 126 to last, that we must practice that, not to take revenge, but have mercy. At Rasulullah was guided by Almighty Allah. If we can practice that, inshallah, we can see the reality of the other faith people. We must engage them, respect them, support them. These are the areas, alhamdulillah, they have done. And alhamdulillah, although lot of allegations, false allegation, now it has totally changed into different situation. They have understood these are politically gained agendas, not in Islam or not by Muslims.
We can't hear you, Maulana.
The question I would like to ask, can I just ask that we did have a situation of Islamophobia, and I think that was well presented. But the time came that when there was the collapse of the economy, when people started seeing there's no fuel, and there was a breakdown of infrastructure, and even the necessities of life were found to be difficult to get in Sri Lanka, then all communities shared in the predicament of the country, and they started facing common challenges. Did this help to bring the masses together? Did then people realize that this whole, creating an enemy and making the Muslims the enemy was actually a political strategy? Was there a realization, and did it help to bring the masses and bring all the people of different faith communities together?
Yes, definitely, Maulana Bam Saab. This situation, when the problem became a common problem, like no fuel or necessities, medical, all communities came together. And after a very long time that we saw all faith religious leaders stood when there were huge protests that was taking place in Colombo at Golface, where the Muslims were fasting, or at the time of their salah, in Ramadan, even non-Muslims were serving the Muslim community at the time of breaking fast, or they were breaking in some situations they were breaking fast with the Muslim community. The ideas were shared, the thoughts were shared, and they themselves started saying, we all one. We were separated by these political leaders, but we are just one nation. We all have the same pain, same cry. We need a better country. So definitely, common crisis united Sri Lanka today. And just to add on Maulana's previous question, ACJU till this day are visiting influential personalities, religious leaders, venerable throes, trying to explain and educate them and remove doubt and suspicion. A very important lesson: when there is doubt, Islamophobia, those who are not in Islam, the non-Muslim community needs a person or organization whom they could trust. So it is very important to have an organization, alhamdulillah, in Sri Lanka like Jam'iyatul Ulama, where they build trust. You know, the Islam, what these people telling us is true. So it is very, very important, because the Islam that they understand is through media and or through social media or any other avenue of media. So till this date, even last week, the last month, and very soon next week, next month, there are appointments to meet influential, intellectual, and religious people of other faith, and it has to continue, even though the situation is neutralized with regard to racism, but the mission has to continue till last, inshallah.
Right. I'm just going to read some of the comments that are coming on our live YouTube page. One or two of them, one brother saying tolerance in diversity leads to coexistence. Someone also making mention of the point that we need media, as has been explained by our presenters, to tell our side of the story. Tolerance, unity, wisdom, cooperation, engagement are key things that the All Sinan Jamiatul Ulama has embraced from the teaching of our elders. We are coming to a time where it's quite late for yourselves, and we've got another 5 minutes for the advertised time for our webinar from 8 o'clock to 9:15 in South African time. And I would just like to ask all the presenters very briefly to speak about two things. One is, in every crisis, there's an opportunity. Do you see any opportunity from the crisis? That's one. And the second thing is, many of you know the South African situation. But I've studied in South Africa. Two of the presenters, Mufti Rizwi, has come and done a presentation to the Southern Africa Ulama Forum. He has long-standing relations with many South African ulama. As someone looking into South Africa, what general advice can you give Muslims of South Africa? So just two questions to end off. In every crisis, there's an opportunity. Is there any opportunity coming and arising out of this crisis? And secondly, what advice can you give to South African Muslims in general? Jazakumullah.
Briefly, let me just answer it two words. One is just there's a great opportunity. We got an opportunity to introduce Islam, to go, to walk to every house and say, what is Islam? So it's a great opportunity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us. Before, when we go, they will say it's a missionary workers. Now we engage, and this is the opportunity. And we see lots of people reading the Quran, they're understanding the Quran, they're becoming sympathizers, and then, some of them, alhamdulillah, even embracing Islam. So there's a lot of opportunity, and actually every crisis is teaching us many lessons. Number two is when it comes to South African context, that what I see, it's fortunate or unfortunate, what I see is that Muslim community in South Africa still busy within themselves with minor issues. So, but they are not seeing what is happening outside in political arena. And this is, maybe I might be wrong, but this is my perspective. And what is happening outside? I see even that South Africa's economy also is becoming worse and worse and worse, and political condition also is becoming worse. So sometimes they may try to use the same strategy of making one community as the enemy and then turn out the entire blame towards the community. So before that comes up, I think South African Muslim community, the ulamas, the leaders, should keep all their petty differences aside and sit together and see, we as South African Muslim community, we have a responsibility to establish the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and see that how we can convey this message. The rest of 40 million population in South Africa who are, have not received this deen properly, it has not gone reach there. And then be better engaged, send better political leaders who will be engaging better in, understanding, respecting the ulamas, getting the guidance, and engaging politically as well, and be actively involved, so that when time comes, when they're trying to make the South African Muslim community enemy, they will say, no, these are the people who protected Makassar. Tuan Yusuf in Makassar is declared as the heroes. I think every South African ulama and the political leaders should be declared as the hero who protected the southern part of the Africa, and who protected the nation there. So for that, I think is the right time to do that. And then working with ulamas, I think as ulamas together, if ulamas are united, I think we can do. Always the petty differences will be there. We can have the same policy. One person says that is the best opinion, let him follow, and whoever have trust in him, let him follow that, and not criticize another group or another ulama group who having another opinion. So that, because when we are in a minority situation, it's really vulnerable. When we are in a majority situation, yes, we can do that. We can have all the debates for many years to come. But when we are in a minority, we can't afford to do that. So that's my input into that question.
Jazakallah so much for that very, very good advice.
Yeah.
I want to say a few things very, very important. I entered Newtown in 1979, and I came out in 1988. And that time, our ustads, may Allah Ta'ala grant them Jannatul Firdaus, Mufti Wali Hassan, Maulana Ahmad Rahman, Maulana Badi Zaman, Maulana Idris, Mirati, Rahmatullah Alayhim. And we were very close to Haji Abdul Wahab, Mufti Zainul Abdin, Maulana Sayyid Khan Saab, Rahmatullah Alayhim. What I have seen in those days, where Shia Sunni on Muharram days, Shia was not allowed to go in front of Jamshed Road and in front of Jamiatul Islami. A time has come in Dr. Abdul Razak, Rahmatullahi Alayhi, and Maulana Salimullah Khan, Rahmatullahi Alayhi, where Ittihadul Madaris has been created, where Shia and Sunni ulama are seated in Newtown, inside the masjid. There are differences. We know that Ahl Sunnatul Jama'ah and Ahl Shia is totally different. But there are areas where we have to work together. It is in Pakistan where we have seen in 1970s and 80s different, and 90s and 2000s is totally different, where our great scholars like Maulana Salimullah Khan and Maulana Dr. Abdul Razak and Mufti Taqi Usmani, the Wifaqul Madaris, they are creating Ittihad al-Madaris, and COVID period, they unitedly stood and forced the government what to do. Therefore, my humble request that every alim should read 4 important books. Number 1, the book, the speech given by Sheikh Yusuf Kandalvi rahimahullah, the Ummat Pana, the unity of the Ummah. The second, Mufti Muhammad Shafi rahimahullah, who gave a wonderful lecture in Qadian, and Allama Anwar Shah Kashmiri was holding his head, and that is Wahdatul Ummah. And third, Sheikh Zakaria rahimahullah, Maratib al-Rijal fi Mizan al-I'tidal, and Hudud Ikhtilaf, Mufti Mahmood's book written by Mufti Farooq. These are 4 fundamental books that our ulama, Deoband ulama, must read that and understand. And we must see India and Pakistan, and especially India, we see Ashraf Ali Thanvi and Hussain Ahmad Madani. They have 2 different opinions in politically, but Alhamdulillah, their hearts were united. They were united. Maulana Ilyas and Maulana Hussain Ahmad Madani was having 2 different Ijtima Majlis, and Hussain Ahmad Madani came to know, Rahmatullah alayhi, that Ilyas is having a Majlis, and Ilyas Rahmatullah came to know he is having Majlis. Both came together and met. These are ideologies, and they have different ideologies, but they are together. They are united. I want to narrate one story. There were 3 cows. One was brown, and second was black, and third was white. And this lion, when go to this cow, all 3 get together. That one time the lion went to brown and black and said, "Oh, I will target this white. That white is not belong to us. You be quiet." At that time, that 2 said, "Yes, okay, you carry on." Then that white went, and the lion went and killed that. And second, it came to the brown and said, "Oh, brown cow, when I target the black, this is not our color." And he said, "Yes, I will allow you." The third, when the lion came to that brown, the brown had said, "Today is your, I'm going to kill you." Said, "Give me little time, then I can say something." What you are going to say, the day you kill the white, that was the day you killed me. This was said by Ali radiallahu anhu, that Hazrat Usman was killed, that day Ali was killed. Therefore, our disunity, ulama and professionals, if we are, and the tujjar, if we are not going to get together, the layman, the public will be misguided. Their skills and everything will be targeted. Therefore, alhamdulillah, my message, I respect Maulana Mufti Rada al-Haq, his great blessing for South Africa. I respect Zakaria and our madrasa and Azadville. Alhamdulillah, 1992, I got an opportunity to participate in the Ijtima and give a lecture Maghrib to Isha. Therefore, I appeal to every scholar, please take lesson from Sri Lanka. Alhamdulillah, you all have visited. I know the Imdad and others came to Sri Lanka in 2004. Maulana Zahir, Maulana Bam, and all Maulana Shabir Soloji, Maulana Rizal Haq, all came and participated and contributed for this. Therefore, we are students of you. Many students, South African students are here. Alhamdulillah, we are one family. Our great scholars, Ashraf Ali Thanvi and Hussain Ahmad Madani, our Sheikh Zakaria Rahmatullah alayhi, Mufti Zainul Abdin, and Yusuf Rahimahullah's Ummat Pana, we have to be united. Otherwise, the same thing what happened, the lion will destroy all of us, and we may not able to do anything. May Allah Ta'ala put all of us into one, and the public must respect the ulama and try to bridge them and bring them together. This is my humble message.
Cannot hear.
More presentations, but we have already come to the end of our time. Jazakallah so much. Mufti Rizvi is not only a respected colleague, he's also someone that we studied together, and all of the great asatiza that you mentioned, are also my asatiza. And I must share something that we not only were co-students, we were also roommates. And we had very interesting debates while we were roommates. And that will be very fond memories. And I think with what Mufti Rizvi had concluded the program, these were very important considerations for everyone. And we make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the ability to understand the presentations in the context in which they were given, and inshallah practice upon it. We will conclude the program. Jazakumullah for all of those who have participated. وآخر دعوانا عن الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.
Jazakumullah khair.